The mansion was silent except for the guards moving through the corridors, but that silence shattered again as Felix and Zane burst into their nightly screams. Their cries cut through the house with a force that made even trained men shift uneasily. Since Deborah walked out and vanished from their lives, the twins had not slept a full night. No nanny had lasted more than 3 days. Every attempt ended in chaos. Frederick stood outside their room, the same man whose name made enemies rethink their choices. People feared him in places most civilians would never dare step into, but tonight he wasn't the man known across the underworld. Tonight he was a father with no idea how to stop his children from falling apart. Jones stepped beside him and spoke in a low voice. "Boss, we've tried everyone. Let Maya try." Frederick turned sharply. Maya, the quiet maid who kept to herself in the east quarters, had never been assigned to the twins. She barely spoke unless spoken to, never caused trouble, never asked for anything. Frederick doubted she could manage what trained nannies couldn't, but the twins were crying harder, almost choking on their sobs. He gave a tight nod. The door opened, and Maya walked in. No confidence, no dramatic entrance, just calm steps toward the 2 small boys curled on their beds. But the moment they saw her, something changed. Felix stopped mid-sob. Zane stared at her as if he recognized her from somewhere he couldn't explain. They reached for her at the same time. Frederick froze. Maya knelt between their beds and gently placed her hands on their backs. She didn't hum or sing. She just whispered to them, words too soft for anyone else to hear. The guards watched from the hallway. Jones crossed his arms in disbelief. Within minutes, the twins who had cried every single night for months were drifting into sleep as if someone had finally removed the weight pressing on their little chests. Frederick stood at the doorway long after the room went quiet. A maid had done what no expert could do. By sunrise, after watching Maya stay by their side until the boys woke peacefully, he made a decision that would change her life permanently. But what was he about to tell her, and why did it leave Jones staring at him like he'd crossed a line no one expected? Where are you watching from, and what do you think Frederick is about to do? Don't forget to subscribe to All Time Tales. Tomorrow's story is one you won't want to miss. Let me take you deeper into the story. The night after Maya calmed the twins for the first time, Frederick stayed awake longer than usual. He sat in his office with the security monitors glowing in front of him, but his mind wasn't on business. It was on the way Felix and Zane had clung to Maya as if they had been waiting for her. Their sudden silence didn't feel like luck. It felt like a clue he had ignored for far too long. The next evening, the twins woke again, but their cries were not the loud, wild screams the staff had grown used to. This time it was sharp, fearful gasping, like they were trying not to be heard. Maya rushed into their room before anyone else could reach them. Both boys were hiding under their blankets, trembling. When she knelt beside them, they grabbed her wrists with so much force she froze for a moment. "Maya, don't let her come back," Felix whispered. "Don't tell Daddy," Zane added, shaking his head rapidly. She tried asking who they were talking about, but the boys shut down instantly. Felix squeezed his eyes shut. Zane curled into Maya's side and buried his head in her shirt. Whatever they were hiding, it wasn't just sadness. It was fear so deep that neither dared speak openly, not even about their own mother. When Frederick arrived at the doorway, Maya glanced at him. She wanted to tell him everything the boys had said, but Felix and Zane stiffened the moment they heard their father's footsteps. Their bodies went rigid, like they were bracing for an outcome they couldn't control. Frederick noticed it right away. His jaw tightened, and he stepped back, confused and hurt. He adored his children, but there was something he didn't know, something they were terrified to repeat in front of him. Later that morning, Maya found small scratches on Zane's back when helping him change clothes. They weren't fresh, but they were thin marks that looked like someone had pulled him too roughly. She checked Felix as well and found the same marks hidden under his shirt. The boys went quiet the moment she asked about them. "Don't ask," Felix whispered. "Please." Maya's heart dropped. Their mother, Deborah, had always carried a loud presence even when she pretended to care for them. The staff rarely spoke openly about her, but the small comments they made were never warm. Arguments, long absences, and suspicious visitors around the house had filled the years before she left. No one ever confronted Frederick about it, but he wasn't blind. He knew Deborah had her own connections that could easily threaten the people closest to him. For the first time since becoming a father, Frederick felt real fear. Not fear for himself, fear that someone had already reached into his home and touched his children. Someone he trusted once. That night, while the boys slept beside Maya, Frederick stood on the balcony overlooking the courtyard. Jones stepped up beside him. "Boss," Jones said quietly, "you think someone's coming after them?" Frederick didn't answer for several seconds. His chest tightened with the memory of those scratches on his sons' backs. "I think," he finally said, "that Deborah didn't just walk away. She left something dangerous behind." Maya checked on the twins again before sleeping. Both boys clung to her shirt even in their dreams, whispering words they didn't dare repeat while awake. She stroked their hair gently, realizing there was more to this family's pain than anyone had admitted. Felix mumbled in his sleep, "Don't take us back, please." That was the moment Maya understood. The twins weren't just afraid of being alone. They were afraid of being found. The days that followed brought a change no one expected. The mansion, once filled with tension and late-night footsteps, slowly gained a new rhythm because of Maya. She began to guide the twins through simple routines: breakfast at the same table every morning, quiet reading in the afternoons, and gentle evening walks through the courtyard. None of it was complicated, but for Felix and Zane, the predictability became a shield. They no longer shrank from shadows or jumped at sudden noises. They held Maya's hands, leaned toward her voice, and followed her instructions as though she had been with them since birth. The staff watched in disbelief as the boys laughed softly for the first time in weeks. Even their nightmares didn't return with the same force. When they did wake up frightened, Maya didn't have to say much. She simply placed a blanket around them, and they settled on their own. Frederick stood at a distance most mornings, pretending to review files or check calls, but he was really watching them. He saw how Felix's shoulders dropped when Maya knelt to tie his shoelaces. He noticed how Zane smiled more when she praised him. The twins had always been restless, but around Maya their restlessness melted into something soft, something safe. What surprised Frederick the most wasn't just their reaction. It was his. Whenever Maya entered a room, his constant tension lowered a little. He found himself breathing differently. He didn't like giving anyone power over his emotions, not after years of keeping his guard up. But something about her calmness pulled him in. She had a way of seeing his children, truly seeing them, that made him wonder what else he had missed while trying to protect them. One evening, he walked into the playroom and froze at the doorway. Maya was sitting cross-legged on the floor while the twins built small wooden blocks around her. Instead of climbing over each other like usual, they were focused, giggling as they handed pieces to her. Felix looked up and waved at Frederick. "Daddy, look. Maya made a house with us." Zane added, "She said the walls have to be strong so nothing can break them." Frederick's throat tightened. For a moment, he saw his children build what they lacked, a fortress where they could finally feel secure. Jane, one of the senior maids, stood near the hallway watching the scene unfold. As Frederick walked off, pretending not to be affected, she approached Maya quietly. "You're doing well with them," Jane said, folding her arms. "Better than anyone expected." Maya smiled, wiping dust from her palms. "They're trying. They just needed time." Alice joined them, lowering her voice. "Be careful, Maya. The more the boys depend on you, the more the boss will keep you close. That isn't always a good thing." "Why not?" Maya asked, confused. Joy, who had overheard, answered before the others could. "Because closeness in this house never stays simple. Frederick doesn't let people near him unless he plans to keep them there forever. And in this life, that can be dangerous." Maya frowned. "I'm only helping the twins." "We know," Jane said. "But men like him don't separate loyalty from emotion. If he starts trusting you, It may pull you into things far heavier than caring for 2 children. Their warning lingered in Maya's mind long after the 3 women left the room. She knew Frederick was powerful, feared, even unpredictable on his worst days. But when she looked at Felix and Zane sleeping curled together that night, she couldn't imagine distancing herself from them. They needed someone who understood their silence, someone who didn't push them. If staying close meant putting herself in a difficult position, she wasn't ready to walk away. What she didn't realize was that Frederick had already noticed her growing bond with the children, and he was beginning to depend on her more than he admitted. 3 weeks after Maya restored calm to the twins' lives, a call came through Frederick's private line. Jones brought the phone to him without saying a word. The moment Frederick heard the voice on the other end, he stopped breathing. It was Deborah. She didn't sound desperate. She didn't sound apologetic. She spoke with a steady confidence that didn't match a mother who had walked away from her children and left them in emotional wreckage. She claimed she wanted Felix and Zane back. She insisted she had changed. She asked for a chance to see them. Frederick didn't answer right away. His fingers tightened around the phone, and Jones watched his expression shift from shock to rage. When he finally ended the call, he stared at the wall for several seconds. Maya heard the news from Jane, who whispered as if the walls themselves might carry the information to the wrong person. Maya didn't react at first. She simply looked toward the twins' room where Felix and Zane were sorting toys peacefully. But something in her chest tightened. She remembered their trembling voices, their fear of being taken back, the scratches they hid, the way they shut down when anyone mentioned their mother. Deborah wanting them back didn't feel right. Later that day, Frederick gathered the staff for a brief announcement. His voice was cold and controlled. Deborah will be allowed supervised visits, he said. Only here. Only when I'm present. No exceptions. The staff exchanged uneasy glances. Maya didn't question him, but she felt the twins stiffen beside her even before they fully understood what was happening. Felix whispered, "Is she coming?" Zane's eyes filled with tears. "Do we have to go with her?" "No," Maya assured quickly. "You're not going anywhere. If she comes, I'll be here with you." Both boys held her hands tightly, refusing to let go. When Deborah arrived 2 days later, the entire mansion seemed to lose warmth. Frederick stood at the far end of the room, arms folded, watching her every movement. Maya stayed behind the twins, offering silent support. Deborah walked in wearing an expensive coat, hair perfectly styled, acting as if she had returned from a vacation rather than disappearing and leaving her sons traumatized. She knelt down slowly, smiling too wide. "Felix. Zane. Mommy missed you." Neither boy moved. They clung to Maya's arms, refusing to step forward. Deborah's smile flickered. "Come here, boys. I'm right here." The twins backed away. Frederick's stare sharpened. Maya kept her expression neutral, but inside she felt every hint of their discomfort. Deborah noticed it too, and her eyes landed on Maya for a long, assessing moment. "So you're the one they're attached to," she murmured. "Interesting." Maya didn't respond. She wasn't sure if it was meant to be a compliment, an accusation, or a warning. After the short, uncomfortable visit ended, the twins ran to Maya before anyone else. Felix's voice trembled. "She's lying." Zane nodded quickly. "She doesn't want us." Maya held them close, wishing she could erase the fear in their voices. That night, Frederick called Jones into his office. He showed him a photo that had been sent to his private email an hour earlier. It was Deborah, meeting with members of a rival Mafia group known for targeting families to weaken their enemies. Jones's voice dropped. "Boss, she's working with them?" Frederick didn't answer immediately. His expression said enough. Deborah hadn't come back for love. She had come back with a plan. Maya sensed the tension even without knowing the details. Each time Deborah visited, she felt the twins' anxiety rise, like they were waiting for something terrible to happen. She stayed close to them, trying to shield them from what she didn't fully understand. Deborah's sudden interest in the children wasn't about guilt or affection. It was tied to a world much darker than motherhood. And Maya suspected that whatever Deborah was hiding was only the beginning. It was nearly midnight when the first sign of danger reached Frederick's mansion. The guards at the front gate heard a vehicle slow down but never stop. A few seconds later, something slid across the ground and hit the metal bars. By the time they rushed forward, the vehicle had disappeared into the dark streets. Jones was alerted immediately. He retrieved the object, a small black envelope sealed with red ink, and carried it straight to Frederick's office without opening it. When Frederick slit the top, a folded sheet dropped onto his desk. It wasn't long. It wasn't complicated. It didn't need to be. Your sons are next. Frederick didn't breathe for several seconds. His grip tightened until the paper crumpled in his hand. Jones stood still, waiting. The threat wasn't random. The timing was too exact, right after Deborah's return, right after her meetings with the rival group, right when the twins were beginning to feel safe again. Everything pointed to a clear message. This wasn't about Frederick's empire. This was personal. Frederick rose from his chair slowly, his expression cold and sharp. The thought of losing his children hit him harder than any enemy ever had. He moved through the house in silence, checking each hallway himself, each locked door, each guard post. Nothing escaped his attention. Down the hall, Maya was in the twins' room. Both boys were asleep beside her, Zane holding her hand tightly even in his dreams. Felix had his head resting against her shoulder. Maya looked up when Frederick entered, sensing something had shifted in the atmosphere. "Are they okay?" he asked quietly. "They're fine," she whispered. "They didn't wake up tonight." Frederick watched them for a moment. Their small breaths, their fragile calm, everything in him tightened. He stepped closer. "We're increasing security," he said. "From tonight onward." Maya nodded, but she could see there was more he wasn't saying. His voice carried a weight she hadn't heard before. He didn't sound like a man preparing for a fight. He sounded like a father who had been pushed too far. When Maya walked out of the room, Frederick followed her into the hallway. "There's something you need to know," he said. She turned, worried. There was a message delivered to the gate. Someone named the boys in a threat. Maya's breath caught. "Who?" "We don't know yet," he replied. "But it's connected to the people Deborah has been meeting." Maya's stomach twisted. The boys had sensed danger long before anyone else. Their fear now made perfect sense. Frederick continued, "From now on, you stay close to them. No one takes them anywhere without my approval. Not the staff. Not the guards. No one." Maya understood immediately. Her voice was steady, even though her heart raced. "I won't leave their side." Frederick studied her carefully. He had trusted very few people in his life, but the bond she had built with Felix and Zane was something he couldn't deny. They didn't just want her near, they needed her near. And after the message at the gate, he wasn't willing to take any chances. Jones approached them a minute later. "Everything's in place, boss. Extra men at the perimeter. Cameras reset. No blind spots." Frederick nodded but kept his eyes on Maya. "You're part of this now," he said quietly. "Part of their protection. That means you're under the same security measures as my family." The words startled her. She had come to the mansion as a simple maid, unnoticed and quiet. Now Frederick was pulling her into a circle reserved for the people he would defend at any cost. But Maya didn't hesitate. "Whatever it takes," she said. Frederick gave a small nod. For the first time that night, a sliver of relief crossed his face. As the guards doubled their positions around the house, and the lights along the walls glowed brighter, Maya returned to the twins and sat between them again. She watched their peaceful faces, knowing everything was about to change. Somewhere in the city, someone had declared war, and they had chosen Frederick's sons as the opening strike. For the next several days, Frederick barely slept. Every second was spent tightening his world. New guards, new surveillance, new routes for movement. But even with all the security, the tension didn't ease. The twins were in danger, and the threat wasn't distant anymore. It was right at his gate. What unsettled him most wasn't the danger. It was how Felix and Zane clung to Maya whenever anything seemed off. They didn't run to him or to the guards. They ran straight to her. They trusted her in ways they didn't trust anyone else, not even their father. Frederick didn't resent it, he understood it. She had become their anchor. One morning, before the twins woke up, Frederick called Maya to his office. She arrived quietly, stepping inside with her hands folded. She still wore the same simple uniform, but the calm confidence she carried was different now. Stronger. "You wanted to see me?" she asked. Frederick gestured for her to sit, though she looked hesitant to take the chair in front of him. No one sat there unless they were part of his inner circle. Eventually she sat down, unsure of what was coming. "There's something we need to talk about," Frederick began. "Something that concerns the twins. And you." Maya nodded slowly. "What is it?" Frederick leaned forward, hands clasped. "Their safety depends on who stays closest to them. They need someone they trust completely. Someone who won't leave, no matter how dangerous things get." She listened quietly, heart racing. "I want to give you legal guardianship rights over them," Frederick continued. "Partial rights, for now. Enough authority to make decisions for them when I'm not around. And I want to make your position here permanent, under my protection." Maya blinked, stunned. "Legal guardianship? Frederick, that's not a small responsibility." "I know," he said. "But you're already doing more for them than anyone else." His voice dropped. "More than Deborah ever did." Maya lowered her eyes. "You're asking me to step into something that could change everything for me." "Exactly," he replied. "That's why I'm telling you openly. If you accept this, you won't be just a maid anymore. Anyone coming after my family will see you as part of it. That means they might target you too." Her breath caught at the weight of those words. She glanced toward the hallway where the twins were likely waking up. She thought of the way they shook during Deborah's visits, the way they slept only when she sat beside them, the way they clung to her hands as if she were the last safe place in their world. "What if I can't do it?" she asked quietly. "What if I fail them?" Frederick shook his head. "You've already proven you won't." Maya looked down at her trembling fingers. She had come to this house expecting nothing more than hard work and silence. She never imagined being offered a place in the lives of two children who needed someone so badly. She never imagined being pulled into Frederick's world, a world where every choice had consequences. Before she could respond, Jones entered without knocking. His expression told Maya this wasn't a casual interruption. "Boss," Jones said, "I know what you're planning. But you need to think it through." Frederick didn't turn. "I have." Jones stepped closer. "No. You're involving her too deeply. Once she's tied to you and the boys legally, she becomes a target. She won't just be at risk during attacks. She'll be marked." Maya swallowed. Jones continued, "Your enemies won't see her as staff. They'll see her as leverage. They'll use her." Maya's pulse pounded. She knew Jones wasn't exaggerating. Frederick's enemies didn't fight fairly. They struck where it hurt most. They would have no hesitation going after someone like her. Frederick remained silent for a long moment. Then he said, "That's exactly why I'm giving her protection." Jones exhaled sharply, frustrated. "Frederick, this woman didn't choose your world. Be sure you're not forcing her into something she can't survive." Maya finally spoke. "Jones, I'm already in it. Whether I want to be or not. The boys need me. If leaving them unprotected puts them in danger, then I'd rather stay." Frederick looked at her carefully. There was no fear in her voice. Only honesty. Only commitment. "You don't have to answer today," Frederick said. "Think about it. But understand this, I don't trust many people. I barely trust the people I pay. But you," he paused. You're the only one the twins feel safe with. If you accept this, I will protect you with every resource I have. Maya nodded slowly, overwhelmed but steady. I'll think about it, she said. As she stood to leave, Frederick's voice followed her. Maya, this isn't just a role. It's a place in their lives. And a place in mine. She froze for a second before walking out. When she reached the twins' room and saw them rushing into her arms, she felt the weight of what she had been asked to accept. Guardianship. Protection. A permanent place in a world she never intended to enter. But looking at Felix and Zane's trusting faces, she knew she might already be too attached to walk away. Maya had finished settling the twins for their afternoon rest when she felt someone behind her in the hallway. The air shifted, not in a frightening way, but in a way that made her turn slowly. Deborah stood near the staircase, fingers gripping the railing as if she needed it to stay upright. Her hair was unbrushed, her eyes swollen from crying, and her clothes looked thrown together in a hurry. She looked nothing like the polished woman who used to command attention in every room. Maya, Deborah whispered. I need to talk to you. Alone. The request startled her. Deborah didn't seek her out. Ever. But something in her voice was too fragile to ignore. Maya glanced toward the twins' room to be sure they were safe, then nodded and led Deborah to the small side lounge where staff usually folded laundry. It was quiet, out of the way, and rarely used. Once the door closed, Deborah wrapped her arms around herself, struggling to breathe steadily. I know you think I'm a terrible mother, she said. Everyone here does. Maya didn't respond. It wasn't her place to agree or to soften the truth. Deborah sank into one of the chairs. I didn't leave my sons because I wanted to. I didn't choose to stay away. Maya stayed standing, watching her carefully. They told me to, Deborah continued. They said if I didn't disappear, they would take the boys. They would make Frederick pay. They made me believe staying away was the only way to keep the twins alive. Maya's stomach tightened. She didn't blink. Who told you that? She asked. Deborah shook her head, tears building. People who have always hated Frederick. People he's crossed before. I thought I could handle them. I thought they just needed money. I thought it was a bluff. Her voice cracked. But it wasn't. They watched me. Everywhere I went. They warned me that if I contacted Frederick, they'd do something I wouldn't be able to stop. They said the twins were safer without me. Maya's hands curled at her sides. The message at the gate, was that connected to them? Deborah looked away, guilt thick in her expression. Yes. They've been waiting for the right moment to strike. They want to hurt him in the worst way possible, and they know the twins are the key. The room felt smaller. The walls felt closer. How long have you known this? Maya asked. Deborah hesitated. Since the beginning. Since I left. I told myself staying away was better than risking their lives. She let out a broken laugh. But of course Frederick thinks I abandoned them out of selfishness. Everyone does. Maya stepped closer. Why are you telling me this now? Because you're the only one they'll listen to, Deborah whispered. Frederick trusts you. The boys depend on you. If I go to him with this, he'll think I'm lying. He'll think it's just another excuse. She lifted her eyes to Maya's. But if you tell him, maybe he'll finally believe what's really happening. Maya felt her heart pounding. The choice pressed down like a weight. Deborah, she said slowly, if what you're saying is true, Frederick needs to know. All of it. Deborah shook her head rapidly. You don't understand. If he finds out I stayed silent this long, he'll shut me out completely. I'll lose them for good. I'm already hanging by a thread. I'm trying, Maya. I'm trying to come back into their lives the right way. Maya exhaled, conflicted. You staying silent doesn't protect them, she said gently. It only gives those people more power. Deborah stood suddenly, gripping Maya's wrist. Please. I'm begging you. Don't destroy whatever chance I have left with my children. Don't tell him yet. Let me try to fix this before he knows the whole truth. The touch wasn't forceful, it was desperate. Deborah's fear wasn't for herself. It was for the sliver of hope she still held of rebuilding something with the twins. Maya looked at her, seeing a woman who had made terrible choices, but not one without remorse. Not one without pain. Not one without love. I don't know what the right choice is, Maya admitted. Deborah released her wrist. I just needed someone to finally hear me. Someone who doesn't see me as the woman who walked out. Maya absorbed her words, feeling the conflict twist deeper. If she told Frederick everything, he would launch a war before the sun went down. He would use every resource he had to track the faction that threatened them. But the moment he learned Deborah knew from the beginning and stayed silent, he would cut her out completely. There would be no second chances for her. No rebuilding. No healing. If Maya stayed quiet, she protected Deborah's hope, but she also kept Frederick blind to pieces of the threat closing in. The twins' safety came before everything, but now the truth wasn't simple. It wasn't clean. Deborah wiped her cheeks. Just give me a little time. Let me try to make things right. Please. Maya didn't promise anything. She left the lounge with her mind heavy, heart torn between two truths. Deborah's confession wasn't just information, it was a decision Maya would have to carry alone. Should she protect the progress Deborah fought to make? Or should she protect Frederick with the full truth, risking the fragile path Deborah was trying to rebuild? Either way, someone would be hurt. And both paths carried consequences she couldn't ignore. The mansion grounds were quiet that evening, the kind of stillness that felt stretched too thin. The twins were in the garden near the east wing, chasing each other between the trimmed hedges while Maya sat on the bench, keeping a close watch. Their laughter was light for once, the kind that made her hope their nightmares were slowly loosening their grip. Jones and two guards stood further out, casually patrolling the perimeter. Everything looked normal, but Maya couldn't shake the lingering tension from Deborah's confession earlier that day. Her mind replayed every word, every tremble in Deborah's voice, every sign of fear. Felix stopped running. Maya, he called, pointing to a butterfly resting on a flower. Zane hurried beside him, fascinated. Maya smiled, walking toward them. Moments like these felt precious, almost fragile. A soft click echoed near the outer gate. It was faint, easy to miss, but Maya heard it. Jones heard it too. His head snapped toward the sound, hand already at his sidearm. The guards stiffened, instincts sharp. Maya, Jones called quietly, take the boys inside. Now. Maya didn't argue. Her pulse spiked as she took each twin's hand, urging them back toward the house. Felix frowned. Why? We just came out. We'll come back soon, she whispered, keeping her tone steady. Stay close. The click came again, followed by the quick shuffle of feet against gravel. Jones swore under his breath. Move. Before Maya could take another step, something struck the metal of the gate, hard. A loud snap followed, sharp enough to make the twins gasp and grip her tighter. The guards shouted commands, sprinting toward the noise. Maya didn't look back. She lifted both boys into her arms even though their combined weight strained her. She didn't care. Their safety was the only thing that mattered. A figure darted from behind one of the trees bordering the estate. Maya caught the movement from the corner of her eye. Too close. Too fast. There was no time to think. She dropped to her knees behind the stone pillar at the base of the terrace steps, pulling the twins into her arms, shielding their bodies completely with her own. Felix clung to her shirt. Zane buried his face in her shoulder, shaking. The sound of struggle broke out near the gate, footsteps pounding, a guard shouting, something metal clattering. Maya held her breath, listening. She didn't dare move. She didn't dare expose even a sliver of the boys. It's okay, she whispered to them, steadying her trembling voice. I've got you. I won't let anything happen to you. A flash of movement approached the terrace. Maya braced herself, tightening her grip around the twins, ready to scream for help. But the figure who sprinted into view wasn't an intruder. It was Frederick. He froze when he saw her position, crouched low, wrapped around the boys like a human shield. His eyes widened, something raw and fierce crossing his expression. He rushed toward them, his breath sharp. "Are they hurt?" he demanded. "No," Maya answered quickly. "They're scared, but they're okay." Frederick knelt in front of them, his hands shaking slightly as he touched the boys' backs, making sure. Felix looked up at him with tearful eyes. "Papa, something tried to get in." Frederick's jaw tightened as he pulled both twins into his arms, holding them close before turning back to Maya. "What happened?" "Someone was watching us from the trees," she said. "They moved toward the terrace. I didn't wait to find out more." Jones ran up the steps, out of breath. "Whoever it was slipped out before we got a clear shot. They knew the layout. They knew where the camera's dead zone." Frederick stood slowly, keeping one arm around each son. His gaze locked onto Maya. "You put yourself in front of them," he said, his voice quieter, rougher. "You didn't hesitate." Maya shook her head. "They were my responsibility in that moment. I did what anyone would do." "No," Jones corrected, staring at her. "Not anyone. Many would have panicked. You didn't." Frederick stepped closer. His sons still clung to him, but his focus remained on her. "You protected them the way a parent would," he said. Maya felt heat rise in her chest, not from the compliment, but from the weight of what it meant. The guards regrouped near the outer wall, radios crackling with updates. Jones relayed orders, his voice sharp now that the immediate danger had passed. Frederick gestured for Maya to follow him inside. She walked beside him, keeping close in case the twins needed reassurance. Once they were in the safety of the living room, Frederick finally allowed his sons to sit on the couch. He crouched in front of them, brushing their hair back gently. "You're safe," he told them. "No one will get near you. I promise." Felix nodded slowly. Zane reached for Maya's hand, pulling her close. Frederick noticed. He rose to his full height, turned toward her, and spoke in a low, sincere tone. "Today showed me something important," he said. "You didn't protect them because it was your job. You did it because you care. I won't forget that." Her breath caught slightly. Frederick wasn't a man who trusted easily. He was even harder to impress. But tonight, something shifted, something real, something deep, something that revealed how much Maya's presence meant to him and to his sons. The breach near the perimeter wasn't just a threat. It was a moment that exposed who Maya truly was to this family. And it changed the way Frederick saw her forever. The attempted breach changed everything inside Frederick's home. The quiet tension became a thick warning, one he couldn't ignore. The twins barely left Maya's side after that night, and Frederick found himself walking the halls with a new awareness, noticing every shadow, every shift among his men, every gap in the mansion's security that once seemed insignificant. He called an immediate meeting with Jones and the high-ranking members of his network. For the first time in years, he didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. The weight of what had almost happened spoke louder than any threat he could give. "No operation takes priority over the twins," he said. "Not one." The room went silent. Frederick had built an empire on precision, control, and fear. Now he was ready to tear it apart and rebuild it from the ground up if it meant keeping Felix and Zane safe. He reassigned trusted men to new posts, cleared out sections of the organization that had grown complacent, and repositioned territories to minimize external risks. Jones listened, nodding with a seriousness few had seen from him. "This will shake the entire city," he warned. "Let it," Frederick replied. "They want to challenge me. They'll learn what it means to touch my family." Word spread quickly. Frederick Castellano was shifting his empire like a man preparing for war. Back in the mansion, Maya tried to keep the twins calm. They sensed the change in the atmosphere. Guards moving faster, doors being reinforced, the subtle tension in every adult around them. She held their hands during their lessons, read to them longer at night, and never allowed them to see her worry. One afternoon, Frederick approached Maya in the hallway. His expression was firm but not cold. "You're moving into the East Wing," he said. Maya blinked, confused. "Sir, I already stay in the East." "No," he cut in gently. "Not the staff quarters. The family East Wing." Her breath caught. That part of the mansion was reserved only for people Frederick trusted beyond question. His children, his closest blood relatives, and no one else. Maya stared at him, unsure if she heard correctly. "Felix and Zane need you close," he continued. "I want you near them. Not across the estate. Not down the service corridor. Here, where I know you're safe and where they can reach you easily." "But that's—" Maya hesitated, searching for the right words. "That changes my position." "It does," Frederick said simply. "It changes everything." She swallowed hard, torn between gratitude and fear. Becoming part of the Eastern Wing wasn't just a change of room. It meant Frederick had drawn a boundary around her, a shield. Not as an employee. As someone he had chosen to keep close. When Jones heard the news, he found Frederick in his office. "You're making it very clear to the city that she matters." Frederick didn't look up from the documents he was marking. "She does." Jones took a slow breath. "Then be ready. The faction targeting you will pay attention to that." "I want them to," Frederick replied. "If they think she's unprotected, they'll come for her first. Now they know she's under my protection. Let them reconsider." The shift in the household was undeniable. Jane, Alice, and Joy kept a careful eye on Maya as she packed her small number of belongings. They weren't jealous, they were worried. Maya had become like the heartbeat of the mansion, someone who made the twins smile and made the halls feel less cold. "You're walking into a different world," Alice said quietly, folding a blanket for her. Joy nodded. "Just be careful. The closer you stand to Frederick, the bigger a target you become." Maya managed a soft smile. "Thank you. I'll be careful." But inside, her emotions were tangled. She wanted to be there for the boys, but she also understood the danger that came with proximity to Frederick's world. Still, when she stepped into the East Wing and saw the small but warm room prepared for her, right beside the twins' doors, she knew she couldn't turn back. The twins ran in moments later, cheering. "Maya, you're next to us now," Zane shouted, hugging her leg. Felix added, "Can you read us stories every night now?" Maya nodded, her throat tightening. "Yes, every night." The change in layout came with another shift, a new closeness between her and Frederick. He passed by her door more often, exchanged more conversations with her, listened when she spoke instead of giving quick orders. Something unspoken settled between them, something that grew from gratitude, respect, and the unseen connection forming in the quiet moments. Meanwhile, reports filtered in from across the city. The rival faction wasn't hiding anymore. They watched Frederick's properties. They tailed his vehicles. They tested small boundaries, like probing for weaknesses. Their interest wasn't focused on him, it was centered on the twins. And now, on Maya. Jones brought the latest intel to Frederick late one night. "They're waiting for you to slip. They're tracking everyone close to you. Especially her." Frederick didn't flinch. His answer was steady, colder than steel. "They'll learn soon enough that touching Maya or the boys is the last move they'll ever make." The tension in the city thickened, but inside the mansion, something else was happening. A slow shift, a quiet transformation. The Castellano family was no longer just Frederick and his sons. It was forming again, reshaping itself around the woman who had walked in quietly and changed everything without meaning to. Frederick had always suspected the rival faction was gathering information, but he never expected the truth to come from Deborah herself. Jones entered Frederick's office with a file in hand, his expression dark. "We found the source of the security leak," he said. "It wasn't intentional, but it came from Deborah." Frederick froze. "She spoke to the wrong people," Jones continued. Men she thought were helping her get back on her feet. They were testing her, manipulating her. She mentioned the boys, the East Wing, and Maya. They used her confusion to gather everything they needed. Frederick's jaw tightened. He tried to handle Deborah carefully, keeping her sane without letting her too close. He had not imagined she could be swayed so easily. Do they know where Maya sleeps? Yes. Frederick rose from his chair so abruptly that Jones stepped back. That means they're not after me. They're going for the 3 people I can't lose. Maya, Felix, Zane. The rival family had grown confident since the failed breach. Now they were ready to make a direct move. They wanted Frederick off balance. They wanted the twins as leverage. They wanted Maya because she represented the one bond Frederick couldn't sever. While Frederick paced the room, Maya was in the playroom with the twins, unaware of what was unfolding. She noticed the guards moving differently, noticed windows being secured earlier than usual, but she said nothing. Felix sat in her lap, building a small tower out of wooden blocks, and Zane leaned against her shoulder, sketching. She kept them engaged, hoping to shield them from the tension. When Frederick finally walked into the playroom, his presence filled the space. His sons looked up immediately, sensing something was wrong. "Papa, you're early," Zane said. Frederick forced a small smile. "I needed to see you." Maya studied him, recognizing the tightness around his eyes, the restrained anger, the fear he didn't want the twins to see. "Can I speak with you?" he asked her. She nodded and followed him to the hallway. The moment the door closed behind them, he exhaled sharply. "They're coming," he said. "Not in weeks. Not in days. They're preparing now." Maya's chest tightened. "What happened?" "Deborah gave away information she didn't understand," he answered. "They know where you sleep. They know the boys' schedule. They're planning to strike when the house transitions between shifts." Maya gripped the railing beside her. "Deborah didn't do it out of malice." "I know," Frederick replied. "But that doesn't change the danger." He stepped closer to her. "I have a choice to make," he said quietly. "Either I respond with violence and drag this into a full conflict, or I step back from everything and focus on protecting the 3 of you." Maya shook her head. "Frederick, if you step back now, they'll sense weakness." "Maybe," he said. "But if I escalate, I risk bringing the fight directly into the home. The boys would be in the middle. I can't allow that." She watched him, seeing a conflict she had never seen in him before, a man torn between the world he built and the people he loved more than that world. Jones appeared at the corner of the hall. "Boss, they've started pulling men off the streets. This is a preparation phase. They'll go after what matters most." Frederick turned to Maya again. "I need you to understand something. If they come for the boys, you're their second target. They know you mean something. They know the boys trust you more than anyone. They know I trust you." Maya tried to keep her voice steady. "I'm not leaving them." "I wasn't going to ask," he said. His voice softened. "But you should know what you're choosing to stand in the middle of." She nodded. "I'm already in it." There was a long pause. He finally said, "I'm pulling my people back. No retaliation. No strike. Not yet. I'm choosing protection over war." Jones looked stunned but didn't argue. Frederick continued, "We'll reinforce the mansion, reroute the boys' routine, and keep no predictable pattern. I'll handle what needs to be handled quietly." Maya breathed slowly. "What about Deborah?" "I'll speak to her," Frederick said. "If she's in danger because of this, she'll be moved to a secure location. But she can't know where the boys are." Maya placed a hand on her chest, grounding herself. "Tell me what you need me to do." Frederick met her gaze. "Stay close. Don't let them out of your sight. If anything feels wrong, anything, you get them inside and call for me." Maya nodded again. He stepped back, watching her with an expression he rarely showed, vulnerability mixed with determination. This rival family wants a reaction. But they don't understand that stepping back doesn't mean I'm weak. It means I'm focused. And when the moment comes, I'll destroy any threat without putting you or the boys at risk. Maya held his eyes. We'll get through this. Frederick nodded. Together. Inside the playroom, the twins waited for them, unaware that a storm was tightening around their home. But the decision had been made. The enemy would move first. But Frederick was ready to protect his family at any cost. Maya didn't look for Deborah. Deborah found her. It happened in the corridor that overlooked the gardens, a place usually quiet enough for the twins to study without distraction. Deborah stepped into her path with eyes that no longer held the nervous uncertainty from before, but something sharper, more cornered. Maya immediately slowed, sensing the weight behind the woman's stare. Deborah whispered that she needed a moment alone, somewhere no cameras or bodyguards hovered, so Maya followed her into a small guest room near the west stairwell. As soon as the door closed, Deborah wrapped her arms around herself, almost as if bracing for cold that wasn't there. She didn't bother pretending strength this time. Her voice cracked as she admitted the truth Maya had already suspected but hadn't fully grasped. She feared the men she'd aligned herself with far more than anything Frederick might have done in the past. She wasn't their partner, she was trapped. They held over her the threat of exposure, ruin, and the possibility of losing the twins forever. They had convinced her that the only way to stay useful was to comply. Now that she wasn't providing helpful information anymore, she sensed they were ready to punish her. Maya let her speak until every word had spilled out. She didn't raise her voice, didn't condemn her, didn't try to console her too quickly. Instead, she studied the details. The names, the locations, the plan Deborah had overheard but had been too terrified to interpret. It wasn't just a threat toward Maya or the children. The rival group wanted control through fear, and the twins were the easiest path. Deborah confessed that they were planning to grab the children during an upcoming charity event, believing Frederick would be too distracted to anticipate it. Maya realized how deeply the danger had already reached. The children were at the heart of everything, and Deborah had spent months caught between survival and guilt, trying to keep herself together. Maya didn't promise forgiveness. She simply told her that fear couldn't guide her anymore. Deborah nodded, wiping her face with trembling hands, grateful for any direction at all. Maya left the room with a plan already forming. She found Jones near the control room, reviewing new guard rotations. The moment she stepped in, he straightened, reading the urgency in her expression. She didn't waste time. She laid out what Deborah had revealed, the intended timing, the group involved, the method they might use. Jones's jaw tightened gradually as each piece clicked into place. He didn't need convincing. He agreed with her assessment immediately. They could use these details to turn the situation around. Instead of warning Frederick too early and allowing panic to ripple through security, Maya proposed they treat the upcoming event as bait. She and Jones would plant misleading information, creating the illusion of vulnerability. The rival group would think their plan was unfolding perfectly, unaware that every exit point, weak corner, or potential blind spot had already been sealed. Maya's calm precision impressed even Jones, who had seen her move through the mansion with quiet instinct but had never before watched her step so confidently into strategy. Jones suggested leading the tactical portion himself, but Maya insisted on staying close to the children during the event. She wanted the attackers to believe she was unaware of anything. That way the trap would be fully convincing and the children would be safest. When they finally presented their plan to Frederick, he didn't interrupt. He listened, leaning forward slightly, hands still and eyes fixed on Maya as she outlined each step. She wasn't guessing, she was reasoning with the intensity of someone who understood what was at stake and refused to leave any opening that could risk the twins' lives. Frederick recognized the shift in her. She no longer behaved like an employee trying to meet expectations. She acted like someone with her own stake in the outcome, someone who would hold the entire structure together if she had to. Jones confirmed everything Maya had said, adding his own tactical adjustments, but Frederick's attention lingered on her. He saw not only her courage but her ability to assess danger, her willingness to confront Deborah directly, and the clarity with which she led the conversation. By the time she finished, he gave a short nod. Not the polite kind meant to acknowledge effort, but the kind that marked trust. He told her quietly that he would follow her plan exactly. The decision wasn't small. It meant allowing her to operate with authority, usually reserved for senior members of his operation. It meant placing the safety of his children in her hands during the moment of greatest risk. It meant acknowledging that she had become someone he relied on more than anyone else. Maya didn't respond with pride or fear. She simply said she would keep the twins safe. Her voice held no tremor, no doubt. Frederick saw it clearly. She wasn't just protecting them. She was stepping into a role neither of them had fully named yet. She left the room to prepare the children for their night routine, and Frederick stayed still for a long moment after the door closed. He watched where she had stood, as if replaying every word in his mind. Jones noticed the look but didn't comment. He already understood what Frederick had realized. Maya wasn't meant to be kept at the edge of this family. She was becoming part of its center. The night of the charity event arrived with a sense of tightened preparation rather than alarm. Everyone carried on with the illusion of routine, guests entering through the main courtyard, staff directing arrivals, musicians setting up near the garden. But beneath it all, Jones's team had already taken their positions with quiet precision. Nothing loud. Nothing flashy. Every move was controlled, calculated, and timed to the second. Maya stayed close to the twins, guiding them through their tasks as if nothing unusual had been planned. She moved calmly, balancing their excitement with a steady presence, subtly guiding them away from vulnerable spots. The rival group believed this moment would be their chance, but they had no idea they were stepping into something designed specifically for them. Jones had studied every pattern of their communication and predicted which direction they'd approach from. As suspected, the group attempted to infiltrate through a rarely used service entrance near the side courtyard. What they didn't know was that Jones had placed sensors and silent alerts across the path, allowing him and his team to follow their every step without being detected. The attackers believed they were moving unseen. They believed they were moments away from cornering Maya, the weakest link in their eyes. But when they made their final push toward the hallway near the children's activity area, all exits behind them locked at the same time. One by one, hidden panels sealed the pathways, leaving them with nowhere to run and no way to reach the children. Jones stepped forward with a small team of trusted members, their approach quiet but firm. They didn't start a fight, they simply ended the conflict before it had a chance to begin. The rival group realized far too late that they had misread every step. None of the guards were injured. No chaos spilled into the event. No bloodshed tainted the night. It was a clean removal, the kind that spoke to planning rather than force. Maya received a discreet signal from Jones confirming that the threat was contained. She continued acting naturally with the twins, helping them greet donors and keeping their attention on harmless conversations. She didn't allow even a flicker of tension to show, not wanting the children to sense the danger that had hovered so close to them. When the event ended and the last guest departed, Frederick met Jones in the control room. Jones delivered the full report, laying out how efficiently the threat had been neutralized. No casualties. No media attention. No blowback expected. Frederick nodded once, relieved but noticeably reflective. He wasn't pleased by the victory. He was grateful, but something deeper settled in his expression, a look that signaled finality. The takedown had shown him what he already suspected. The children would never have true stability if he remained entangled in criminal networks. Even if he won every conflict, another one would rise behind it. The twins deserved a life defined by safety, not old loyalties or inherited dangers. The moment the threat was removed, Frederick began to set in motion something he had resisted for years. He called in his inner circle over the next several days. One conversation after another, he stepped away from operations, transferring authority, closing channels, and creating distance between his family and the world he'd once commanded. It wasn't an instant transformation, but a deliberate one. His priority shifted fully to the twins, and to protecting the people who protected them. Deborah returned to the mansion quietly 2 weeks later. She arrived without the weight she once carried, as if shedding the group that had pulled her into fear allowed her to stand straighter. Maya met her in the study, expecting hesitation, guilt, or conflict. Instead, Deborah walked in with a folder in her hands and eyes that didn't avoid Maya's gaze. Inside the folder were the final custody papers. Deborah explained that she had spent the past several days speaking with her attorney, reviewing options, thinking through every consequence. She knew she couldn't provide the security or structure the twins needed, and she didn't want them pulled between two unstable households. More than anything, she didn't want them to grow up watching her fall apart and rebuild repeatedly. She placed the papers on the desk and said that she trusted Maya, not out of obligation or pressure, but because Maya had become the one constant the children could count on. Deborah didn't try to make excuses for the past. She simply acknowledged that her role in their lives needed to change, and she hoped Maya would guide them with a steadiness she never could sustain. Maya felt the weight of Deborah's words, not as triumph but as responsibility. She didn't celebrate it. Instead, she asked if Deborah was certain, giving her one last chance to reconsider. Deborah nodded without wavering. She had made peace with her decision. She even thanked Maya, something Maya never expected, for being the anchor the twins had needed all along. When Frederick signed his portion of the documents, he didn't look surprised. He already knew the truth that Deborah had finally voiced. Maya had stepped into the children's lives at a moment when everything was vulnerable, and rather than bending under the weight of his world, she had held the family together. She had faced danger, protected the children, confronted difficult truths, and still remained gentle with them through it all. By the time the papers were filed, the household settled into a calmer rhythm. Maya remained with the twins in the East Wing, guiding them through morning routines, homework sessions, and quiet moments before sleep. Frederick spent longer hours away from former associates and more time sitting with the children, observing the life he was rebuilding. Jones noticed the shift as well. The way Frederick looked at his future with a seriousness that hadn't existed before, and the way Maya stood at the center of it without ever asking for recognition. The fall of the enemy didn't just end a threat. It redefined the path forward. It marked the moment when old habits were replaced with new priorities, and when the family began to grow into something steadier, something held together by choices rather than fear. And at the heart of all of it stood Maya, the person who hadn't been meant to stay but had become impossible to imagine the household without. Years passed with a quiet steadiness that would have felt impossible in the early days. Felix and Zane grew into confident, thoughtful young men, each carrying pieces of their past but no longer shaped by fear. Their childhood memories still held shadows, but Maya's presence allowed them to grow without being consumed by what once haunted them. She guided them through every milestone: first days of school, scraped knees, bad dreams, difficult conversations, always with the same reassurance she had offered from the day she stepped into their lives. Frederick changed alongside his sons. His world no longer revolved around rivals, negotiations, or hidden alliances. He still carried a commanding presence, but the sharp edges had softened. He spent mornings helping the boys prepare for school and evenings reviewing their homework, learning to parent from the ground up. He replaced meetings with family dinners, security updates with quiet walks along the garden, and late-night phone calls with time spent reading on the couch while the twins argued playfully over who got to sit beside him. Through every shift, Maya became the center of the home, not by demanding authority, but by living with a devotion that reshaped the entire household. She was the person the staff trusted without hesitation, the person the twins confided in without fear, and the person Frederick relied on more than he ever admitted aloud. She didn't simply function as a caregiver, she carried the emotional core of the family. She was the calm in every storm, the guide in every uncertain moment, and the force that kept their world aligned. One evening, when the twins were preparing for an important school ceremony, Frederick found himself watching them from the doorway. Maya was adjusting Felix's collar while Zane rushed around searching for his misplaced speech cards. She handled their chaos with patience, correcting small mistakes, encouraging them, keeping them from panicking. It struck Frederick how natural it all felt, how she moved through the home with a sense of belonging that had grown over the years into something undeniable. After the boys left the room, Frederick spoke quietly, almost as if confessing something he had held inside far too long. He told Maya that she hadn't just helped the twins recover from their early trauma, she had saved the entire family from collapsing. She had stepped into a life filled with threats, history, and complications, and yet she managed to protect the children, guide them, and steady him in ways he didn't know he needed. Maya didn't respond with grand emotion. She didn't need to. Her silence carried understanding, and the look she gave him made it clear she had always been committed to their well-being, even before she fully understood the weight of their world. It wasn't praise she wanted, it was peace for the family she had grown to love. As the boys matured, their bond with Maya only deepened. They sought her advice on everything: school, friendships, future plans. They trusted her judgment more than anyone else's, and they let her see their vulnerabilities without hesitation. She had replaced fear with stability, confusion with guidance, and uncertainty with a sense of direction. Even with the years of calm, the past never faded. There were subtle reminders that certain groups still watched the Castellano name from a distance, waiting for weaknesses or opportunities. Jones remained close, his watchful presence ensuring threats stayed far away. The family never dropped their guard entirely, but they no longer lived in constant tension. They lived with awareness, not dread. On a quiet night, long after the household had settled, Maya stepped onto the balcony of the East Wing. She overlooked the grounds that had once been surrounded by constant caution and now stood as a symbol of the life they rebuilt together. Frederick joined her, leaning against the railing beside her. The silence between them was comfortable, not empty. They didn't speak about danger or regrets. They just stood there, understanding how far they had come. The future held questions: the twins' coming adulthood, Frederick's continued effort to distance himself from old ties, the possibility that dormant threats could rise again. But the family was no longer fragile. They were forged through difficult choices, rebuilt with intention, and held together by the one person who had walked into their lives by accident and stayed because she refused to let them fall apart. The story settles on the edge of new possibilities, leaving room for more challenges, more victories, and more revelations. It doesn't end with complete certainty, only with the knowledge that whatever comes next, they face it together, stronger than they ever were before. Thank you for listening to this powerful journey. If this story moved you, make sure to like, leave a comment, subscribe, and share where you're watching from. Come back tomorrow, there's another story waiting for you, and you won't want to miss it.